Alright, so welcome back on continuous time system. So in the previous part, we've listed out all the seven continuous time systems that we are going to be looking at in the course of this lecture series. So these are them. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be looking at them one after the other in terms of their definitions. So the first one, we have the linear system. Alright, so when we say linear system, so we can define it as saying a system is said to be linear if it obeys superposition and homogeneity of the system. So to add to the definition on the screen right now, so when you say to obey superposition, and when we are talking about it in respect to signal and systems, it means that if there are more than one input, exactly. So we consider one input at a time, and then their equivalent signal will now be derived after considering one of those input one at a time. So just the same way we look at superposition when we are looking at circuit theory, exactly. So that is it on linear systems. So that let's go to the next one. So the second one is time invariance. So time invariant system says this is a system in which its response, so this is coming to it, its response is insignificantly independent of time. So when they say its response is insignificantly independent of time, we are saying that is time shifting doesn't affect it. Exactly. So don't forget, when we talk about time shifting, is one of the basic operations of signal. We've talked about that earlier. So that is time shifting doesn't affect it. Exactly. So this is a system in which time shifting doesn't affect it. So in other words, irrespective of time, time doesn't affect it. Exactly. So that's for time invariant system. So now let's look at another one. So for the third one now, let's look at causal. For causal system. Alright, so what can we say about causal system? So the causal system generates the output depending upon present and past inputs only. So causal system generates the output depending upon the present and past system only. So just take note of this. As we go on in this lecture series, we are also going to look at examples where you are going to be given some signals and you'll be asked to determine, or some system rather, or signal, whichever one it might be, you might be asked to now determine if that particular signal or the particular system, if it is causal, non-causal, or anti-causal. So when it's a causal system, so you have to also take note of these definitions, that it depends upon the present and past inputs only. Exactly. So there are some systems that also depend on the future inputs. We'll put that into consideration. Exactly. So but now for causal, it only depends upon the present and the past inputs only. Alright, so now let's go to the fourth one. So number 4, we are going to be talking about the stable system. So for the definition of a stable system is when a bounded input produces a bounded output. So such system is said to be a stable system. Bounded input producing a bounded output. So that system that does that is said to be a stable system. All right. So let's continue. Let's look at another one. So let's look at the memory and memoryless system. So for memory and memoryless, so now let's look at the memory memory system says this is a system that has the ability to recall past events and probably add to present system to produce an output. Exactly. So So just like the word, if you look at the memory system, it has the ability to call past events. So that means it still has memory of past events. It adds it to the current he said it probably add to the present system to produce an output. While for memoryless, which is this, so for the memoryless system, output depends upon the present input only. Exactly. So that's for memoryless. It depends on the present input only. So if you have to compare this with the cursor that we looked at earlier, I said cursor system generates the output depending upon the present and past inputs only. So the difference between this and the memoryless is for cursor that depends upon the present and the past input, but for memoryless it only depends on the present. It has nothing to do with the past. Exactly. So those are some of the differences that is there. So don't confuse it with each other. All right. So now let's look at. We still have two more to look at. So let's look at the next one, which is the sixth one. We have the invertible system. So let's see, what's this system talking about? So by definition, a system is said to be invertible if the input can be received from the output. So if the input can be received from the output, so that's such a system is said to be invertible. Now, if such is not possible, then otherwise the system is what is non-invertible. That's just the opposite of the word. So now let's look at the last one. So last one here is that's number 7. We are having the step and impulse response or responses. So for this now, you can see we are having a separate definition for its step and impulse response. Now for the impulse response, what this actually means is that this is when the input to the system is unit impulse input. Exactly. So unit impulse input. So once the input is based on unit impulse, so you can call that system an impulse response system. Exactly. Now then for step response, so this is when the input to the system is a unit step input. So this is just the difference. So the type of input into the system that will determine if it is a unit step system or which it will determine if it's a step response system or an impulse response system. So I hope you're able to get the difference between the two. So those are the definitions of the 7 continuous time systems that we are going to be looking at in the course of this lecture series. So these are them, and by definitions, these are the definitions to each of them. So we've looked at the linear system, the time invariant system, the cursor. We've looked at the cursor system, and then the stable system. We've also looked at the memory and memoryless system, the invertible system, and then we've also looked at the step and impulse response. So that's it, and then we are going to continue in the next video. So if you find value in this, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any question or any doubts, don't hesitate to leave it in the comment section below. And then with that, guys, I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.